Hello folks, it's Space again. Welcome to another model review video, and this time we've got the EFE Leyland Olympian in Isle of Man transport livery. Now I've done the Olympian before. I did quite an involved video featuring an EFE one, a Corgi OOC one, and also parts of a Tower Models kit. So I'll put the link in the description to that one if you want to see the full review. This in essence is a bit of a mini review just of this particular model in this livery rather than the actual casting. But I will have a look around it as normal just to show you what's good and what isn't in case you didn't see the original one. But as I say, I will put a link in the description if you want to watch the other review where I did this model plus the Corgi and the Tower Models versions. So the one we've got today is EFE catalogue number 29622, released in December of 2009. As we said, an Isle of Man transport livery. It's a model of their fleet number 87, registered BMN 87G. So I'll take it out of the box and we'll see what we've got. And there it is, looking very nice indeed. Just in case you're not familiar with the Isle of Man and its transport system, until the 1970s the bus services were run mainly by Isle of Man Road Services, who were a private company. They were a subsidiary of the Isle of Man Railway Company. The local services in Douglas were run by Douglas Corporation. By the 70s they were both struggling quite a bit, and there was a fear that one or both of them might cease operations. So in 1976 the Isle of Man government nationalised them both and formed Isle of Man National Transport to keep the services going. Now Isle of Man National Transport got some new Leyland Nationals in the 70s, but otherwise than that their intake of buses was all second hand for many years, and the first new double-deckers to arrive were a batch of 6 Leyland Olympians, of which this is a model of one, number 87 as we said, and they arrived in 1988, no less than 12 years after the Isle of Man National Transport had been formed. They introduced a new fleet name, Isle of Man Transport. Previously they carried National Transport fleet names, or none at all by the 80s. In the 1980s the use of the fleet name seemed to fall out of fashion a little bit, but they brought in a new fleet name, Isle of Man Transport, as you can see on this model. I'll just hold it up to the camera. And they brought a brighter livery as well. They've been using a kind of red and white scheme, and they brought a red and cream one, not the version that this bus is painted in. The version that they were delivered new in had red up to the top of the lower deck windows and then cream above, but the red was a lighter shade than this. It was a kind of orangey colour, and the cream was darker. In the late 90s this livery was introduced with a darker red and a lighter cream, which looked very nice indeed. So this is in the livery of the late 90s onwards. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'll go through the history of the bus very shortly. In 2009 Isle of Man Transport relaunched itself as Bus Vannin and adopted a new livery, but that's not relevant to what we're doing today. So 87, as we said, was new in 1988, November 1988 to be exact. It was one of a batch of 6, registered BMN 87G in the Isle of Man series. The registration of the Isle of Man are not the same as the UK, so it wasn't registered in 1969. Obviously in 1960, in a UK bus with a G suffix registration would be 1969. It's not. They're issued in a seemingly random order, Isle of Man numbers, but there must be some rhyme or reason to it, and obviously the authorities have a record of what was issued when, so they know how old vehicles are. But to give you some example, I think the next Olympians delivered had P suffix registration, so that's it. But Isle of Man vehicles are all registered in either the series with MN, so you get a letter and then MN, like BMN in this case, or CMN, DMN, etc., or they have MAN, man, as the start of the registration number. So as we said, it was delivered in the then new livery of half red, half cream. This particular bus was repainted into this version of delivery in early 2000, the sort of late 90s livery. It received it in early 2000, and it looked very smart indeed, as you can see. It was withdrawn in 2008. It went to a preservationist. I believe it was privately preserved, but it was stored at the JB Transport Museum in the north of the Isle of Man. It was moved to Sulby in 2013 under its own power. It was driven there. There's a video on YouTube of it being moved. And then by 2016 it was Andreas, again in the north of the island. It seemed to be in use as a store. Some of the windows appear to have been panelled over. It may still be there. I don't know if it still exists or not. Hopefully it does. Hopefully it's still waiting for restoration. So let's have a look at the model, and as always we start with the front. The front dome isn't bad. I think I commented on this in the last review video of the Olympian I did. It's not quite accurate, it looks a little bit too chunky. It was quite thin looking, was the real dome. The vents are printed on, they don't look too bad though, and they would look better if they were in relief, but obviously, you know, you can't do everything on a model. So it's not too bad, it's not quite 100%. The upstairs front window's not bad, two flat bits of glass in a V shape as it should be. The divider picked out in silver, and there was a bit of relief to that as well. It's not just painted on, so that's very, very nice. Destination blind, as usual on models, printed on so they can do different variations. In this case, it's modelled on Route 6. That's the long way around from Ramsey to Douglas via the Wildlife Park and Peel, as you can see on the intermediate destination underneath. Fleet number presented nicely there, 87, and livery very, very crisply painted and printed on. This model, unlike the one I reviewed in the original video, has got the BET windscreen, the curved BET screen, and that looks very, very good. It's a very, very good representation indeed of that windscreen. Wipers picked out in black, and there is some relief to them as well. They're sort of moulded onto the screen and not just printed on. They are actually there, and again the centre divider picked out in silver and moulded in, so there's some relief to that. Lower front looks really good. You've got the assortment of grills and things there, headlights, indicators, etc. No fog lights on this bus, so the recesses are just left blank as they would be on the real thing. And the Isle of Man plate printed on very, very nicely, BMN 87G. Just a quick footnote, some of the model listings say that this is an Eastern Coachworks bodied vehicle, and it isn't. It's a Leyland bodied one. It's when the Olympian was first introduced, I mean obviously you could buy from different manufacturers the bodywork, but if you wanted it within Leyland Group, Leyland's subsidiaries, Eastern Coachworks and Charles Rowe built the bodies on them. Generally speaking, Rowe did the high bridge 14'6" high ones, and Eastern Coachworks did the low height 13'8". Not an exact science, there were some Rowe bodied low heights that went to Strathclyde PTE, but generally that was how it was. However, Rowe was closed in 1984, and all production of the Leyland Group's bodies for the Olympian were moved to Eastern Coachworks. But then Eastern Coachworks closed in 1987, so Leyland weren't going to bother building bodies. Then they decided at the last minute that they would still offer some bodies in their range, and they moved production to the former Leyland National Factory at Workington, and that's where these buses were produced. The Leyland bodies quickly got a reputation for poor build quality. All 6 of the Isle of Man ones went back to Workington at least once for rectification work, and indeed apparently some of them went twice. But despite that, they managed to last quite a long time. They had a long service life. As we just said, 87 lasted for 20 years in service, so it didn't do too badly after a fairly rocky start. So going around to the near side, again, general impression of size and shape is pretty good. The shape of it's really good. In fact, the cove panels are right. The side looks good. You've got the panel lines nicely moulded on. 2-leaf door as it should have. That looks really good. The glazing quite flush in that one as well. Very, very nice. And the windows look good. The opening hopper vents, nicely done. They are printed on. There's not much relief to me, just a little bit of relief where you go over the paint, but that's it. They're not actually moulded in, but they look accurate nevertheless. And you've got the door control push button there. The various grills printed on. Again, they're printed so they can do different variations. There is a cast one there that isn't on the real vehicle, so it's just painted over in body colour and not picked out. The wheels look very, very nice. Unfortunately, Isle of Man Transport painted the wheels black, so you can't really see the detail, but it is very, very good. Let me see if I can get it a bit closer to the camera so you can see it. Yep, there we go. Very nice wheels. Round to the back, the big emergency window, nicely modelled. You've got the little hinges at the top there, which is a good feature, and the handle to open it as well. There's some relief to that, and indeed the hinges, very, very nice indeed. And you've got the emergency exit to open letter in there just underneath, and that looks really good. Again, the vents on the back printed in. The rear dome looks more accurate than the front one. It was a bit chunkier, and it looks than the front one was in real life, and that looks really, really nice. Between next panels, pretty good. The registration plate is flush. It was recessed on the rail bodies, but it's a minor thing. Again, it's printed on so they can do different variations. Not all of the bodies on Olympians had the plate recessed in, as far as I remember. Rear lower deck window looks pretty decent. Again, right size and shape. You've got the ventilation grills printed on. That's again so they can do different variations. A lot of the earlier Olympians were fitted with either TL11 or Gardner 6LXB engines, whereas these ones were Cummins L10 engines, so they had extra vents in the back for the Cummins engine, and that's what's printed on there. So again, very realistic and very good. The two-piece engine cover, nicely modelled. You can see the surround, sort of the perimeter of it there, the hinges for it at the top, and then this bit across there. Well, it folded in half basically. So you lifted it up, and then the bottom bit folded back down, so it was a bit more compact rather than having a massive engine cover over your head. It sort of folded into two. So yeah, that's really, really nicely done. Lights are really well picked out. I mean, the individual lights are picked out nicely, but the silver surrounds on them as well, which is a really nice feature. And then the Leyland Olympian badge there, very, very good. Round to the offside, again, it's a nice model. You've got the recess for the exhaust, then just picked out in black, bit of exhaust pipe detail as well. That looks really good. A lot of manufacturers do them in body colour and they look a bit ridiculous, but the black exhaust there looks very nice indeed. Again, the grill's printed on, so they can do different variations. Got the water filler there. That would be nice if the cap was picked out in silver, but it isn't for some reason, whereas the emergency exit door handle is. That looks very nice. And again, windows and things really, really good. Again, the fuel filler isn't picked out in silver, and that's something you could do. Dab a silver paint on a cocktail stick, just that and that done, and it would improve the appearance of the bus quite markedly. Before we finish on the outside, I didn't mention the wing mirrors. They look very nice. I mean, obviously don't hit them too hard, but they're not too flimsy. They do move about a bit. There's a bit of give to them. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend catching them, and I'll try and avoid doing so, because I've broken quite a few buses doing these reviews, and I don't intend to break this one. Looking at the roof, the panel lines are nicely moulded on, and you've got the radio equipment cover dish there, the radio antenna cover dish on there. I believe Isle of Man buses at this period did have radios on them, so that's realistic. Flip it over, normal EFE chassis detail. You've got the chassis framework, some of the pipe and cable runs, fuel tank, underside of the engine, etc. All looking pretty decent and done in a nice black colour. So, I mean, I always say this on these reviews and people probably get sick of me saying it, but if you display it on a hill, you can sort of see the underside a little bit, and if it's done in body colour like a lot of models are, it shines up and it looks a bit ridiculous. The interior, as always on EFEs, is nicely modelled. There is some detail to it, there's some shape to the seats. You can just about see that the seat back grab rails are moulded on. They're not separate to the seats, but they are moulded on in detail. Unfortunately, it's all done in a really weird dark brown colour, so you can't see any of the detail. And that's another thing I always say on these reviews, it would benefit from taking the bus apart and painting it to bring the detail out. And it would, because it's a shame. EFE interiors are very nice, and it was only towards the very end of their production run, before they were bought by Bachmann, that they started to pick out individual bits so you could actually see the interior. It's a real shame, because they are nicely detailed. You can't see it because they're done in one colour, and when it's dark like this one, you can't see anything at all. Ticket machine, you can just see there through the window. That's a nice feature, and it is picked out in a different colour, so you can actually see it, and you can just about see the driver's console and steering wheel there. The rail buses, as far as I remember, the seat backs were done in a kind of beigey brown colour, and the seats themselves were red. So again, if you wanted to take it apart and paint it, that would improve the appearance no end. But it's a very, very nice model. I'm collecting together a few Isle of Man models at the moment to do a bit of a diorama, so you will see a few more of them coming along in the future. I've got a couple of reviews to do on other Isle of Man models, including at the moment, as I'm filming this, another bus and a tram as well. So look out for those if you're interested. Again, I'll put links in the description to those when I've done them and when they become live. So if you want one of these models, how much will it set you back for the Isle of Man one? Not the Olympian generally, I've done that before, just the Isle of Man one. This one cost me £19.22, including postage. It was on bids, and it was one of those eBay auctions that finished at a weird time when nobody's actually in. And luckily, I happened to be day off that day, so I managed to get it for a snip, £19.22. They are available sporadically. I mean, I think normally the price you'd pay for them is somewhere between about the £25 to £35 mark, and I'm sounding a bit awkward on this, because when I looked for it in June 2025, when I was doing this video, I looked on eBay for the price and there weren't any available. I'd bought the last one that they had. I looked again and one had appeared. Now that was £31 for the actual model. Excellent, but the postage on it was £18.25, and that was because it was in the USA. So, I mean, obviously if you could find a British one, the postage would be about a fiver probably, so you're looking sort of mid-30s, somewhere around there. They are quite scarce. It's a very sought after model. People love the Isle of Man buses, whether they happen to be residents there, whether they've been on holiday, on a trip across to see the trams and trains, etc. All of which very well worth doing. But, you know, they want a souvenir, and there's been very few Isle of Man prototypes produced, really, unfortunately. You know, it's a bit of a shame. But, yeah, so they are sought after, and therefore they don't come up very often. So don't expect to get one cheap. I was very, very pleased to get one for £19, basically. That's an absolute bargain. But normally, as I say, you're looking, I believe, between about sort of the mid-20s and the mid-30s for one. So I expect to pay that much. But definitely worth getting if you can find one, because it's a very, very nice model indeed. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching. As I say, I'll put links into the other Isle of Man bits and pieces as I do them, and to the original Olympian review where I compared the EFE 1 to the Corgi OOC, and some bits of a tower model one. It wasn't a complete tower models bus, it was just some components of the kit. But yeah, I'll put links to that as well. But again, thank you for watching, take care of yourselves, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.